Do. Good evening, guys. Welcome to the Accidental Journalist Live and Undrugged Series 2, episode 19. As always, thanks to our sponsors, Mr. James Jeffries at the Facebook Gosport bullying page. I'm trying to stamp out bullying all over Facebook. I am here with Heather Major. Heather is going to share her life, her story, and her recovery. Really, those who join, as they usually do, experience, strength, and hope, that we call it. So, hi, Heather. Thanks for coming on and agreeing to do this.
All right. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's great. It's been a little while trying to get you on. I know it's been some time in trying to schedule it, but it's great to have you. I want to go back to the start of your journey.
Sure. Like when I first drank.
Yeah, like you
that sort of thing. So
yeah.
I think my first drink and drug was at 13. And I got really sick at that time. My parents were divorced, so I would ride the Greyhound bus back and forth, from my mom to my dad, once or twice a month to visit. And I had to get on that Greyhound bus the next day, and the stench from the bathroom in the back, and it was a miserable ride. But it's not like I thought, wow, like I don't want to feel that way again and not do it. Instead, in middle school, the friends I hung around, we drank a little bit and we had our fun. And same with high school, you experiment. And I just think that's just what kids were doing where I was. And, I experimented with quite a few things. I think that's the first, I started smoking weed. I started using X. I started drinking. And then like later on in my high school career, I found methamphetamines. And what that looked like for me is I ended up getting kicked out at 18. I'd already graduated, but still living at home with my dad. And I like threw a house party when he was out of town, and he called, and someone answered the phone, and he's like, I'm done. He kicked me out. And so when I moved, I ended up moving with my mom. So here I am, 18, no direction in life. I don't know what I'm doing. And, but the thing is, so I didn't know anybody. So as far as like drug use or anything, it was like, I was done doing it. And at that time it was easy just to leave it. So then, I met my first husband at 18, and he was older and had 2 kids. And I really loved being a mom, a stepmom. And, we were together for a while, and we'd have the occasional barbecue. And when I drank, I guess maybe every once in a while, like I kind of catch that buzz and then put it down. But for the most part, like if I'm drinking, I'm drinking. And it wasn't all the time. I never thought that it would be a problem. My mom, I won't say as a heavy drinker, I can't say, she was an alcoholic, and she had some severe mental health problems, which I didn't really know about too much till later on in life, but a lot of things made more sense. But anyways, I don't know if it was maybe that fear of kind of being my mom, why I didn't drink so much in my like early 20s. But we were together for a while, and I think after I had my son, he wasn't a bad guy. That's the thing, he was a good guy. Our son was about 2, and I wanted more, and he wasn't providing it for me. So I left that marriage, and I had like a free pass. I had this freedom, I was a mom, and, had a household of 5, and I had all this freedom now. So I say I went a little crazy. My partying wasn't all the time. I always say, like, I was a responsible mom, and, but lines are definitely crossed. I definitely, like, I drank and drove with my kid in the car. And when I was drinking, I didn't think rationally, So through the course of I would say, like, the next few years, um, the drinking and the using, I don't say it became pretty regular, but it happened quite often. And what ended up happening is I had an incident that happened, and I had a really bad tendency to go online and, meeting men, and I put myself in this situation where I met the guy at the bar, and I ended up getting roofied. And, like, I remember, like, going the next day to my friends. I think we went out to a dinner or something. They're like, "Oh, hey, how was that date?" And I'm like, you know what? Like, I I had no, like, recall. Like, I was like, and I realized what happened, but, like, my friends and I, like, we laughed about it, like, that kind of, like, stuff, and that behavior was kind of just normal within amongst the group of friends that I had at the time, which is just crazy thinking about it now. But so fast forward, there's about 5 years of, a little insanity, drug my son through it. And then I met my second husband, and I thought he, like, marked all the boxes, like, this is going to be my forever, he's the one, kind of thing. And what happened was, is the beginning, I can't say it was all bad. Every relationship has its, its highlight reel. And what ultimately ended up happening is I kind of stayed in an unhealthy relationship. And, his dad was an alcoholic. My mom's an alcoholic, and he wasn't a really big drinker. He drank from time to time, but not much. So, I'd say in the beginning of, that relationship or marriage, I didn't drink a whole lot. When I did, though, it was like, he was kind of an introvert. So I would go out, with my friends into functions, and that's where I would drink, but not bring it home so much. And the very beginning of our marriage, what happened is we did it so backwards. So, like, we bought a house, and then we got married, and then I was in a really bad car accident, and these were all, like, consecutive months. And the car accident, it really shook me. So, I went from being, like, super active, playing softball and, on the go, to laid up, not being able to do nothing. And that's when I was first introduced to, it was Vicodin at the time. And I can't say I had used it in the beginning, but it did become a problem later on. But what happened was, a lot of, I don't say fear behind it, because what happened was there was a fatality on the other end. The people that I had hit, the wife had passed, and I had all this remorse and this guilt, and I wasn't at fault, but I still had all those feelings, and, the fear that they're going to hunt me down, and, oh my God, what did I do? And my depression, it got really bad. I say I struggled. I was first diagnosed with depression when I was a teenager. It was one of those things where I was acting out, and I just kind of got honest with my dad. He brought me to therapy, and then, they prescribed a medication, and, me being the jerk teenager, I was just like, I don't like the way it makes me feel. And I quit taking it. And so I kind of just went about life, and I didn't think maybe, I don't know if I grew out of it, but the depression, it was very, very evident at that time. And not really drinking at that point. This was June 2008. I don't know if I said that. June 2008, kind of give you a timeline. And so I ate my feelings. I joke, I was like, I think, food was probably my first true love. I've always been heavy. I was always, the chubby girl with the cute face kind of thing. And so, in eating my feelings, I put on a lot of weight in a really short time. And, I had just no self-esteem, and his words got really unkind. And, he was not a fan of the weight. And so what I did is, it was March 2011. I had gastric bypass surgery, to lose the weight. And it's not like I did it because I wanted to be healthy. I did it for him. I'm going to lose the weight, and we're just going to be great. Like, we're going to be happy, like in the beginning. And, that wasn't the case. I lost the weight, and, if they, you can't change people by your actions. But I had to try. Right. So, it was maybe, I say, like, for a while I was saying, like, I didn't drink for the first year after, because, the doctors tell you not to drink, and, thank you, Facebook memories, for proving me wrong, because what happened was, a while back, a memory had come up. It was from October of that year. And it's like, oh, I guess I shouldn't have had that bottle of wine. Ha ha. So it was from March to October I was drinking a bottle of wine. And and it wasn't every night, my timeline's super foggy. And that's something I'm working through with my therapist too. But I could say, when I drank, I didn't care. The behavior of my husband got tolerable, and I was able to deal with the shit show of my life at that point in time, when I drank. And I didn't drink every day. I didn't drink, in the beginning, I didn't drink every day. Sometimes I go on benders where, through the week, like Friday to Sunday, and, intoxicated, or, if there's a function, I'm definitely going to get wasted. And eventually what happens, he ends up going to school, and he becomes an over the road truck driver. And so when he was on the road, he was doing what he wanted, which gave me permission to do what I wanted. And what ended up happening is, my drinking, it progressed. My fourth son, bless his heart, he is going to be, he's going to be 23 this year. And, I'm dragging him through this. I have still to say, like, I have no recollection, like what he actually saw behavior wise. But, like, fast forward, it gets to a point where I'm a daily drinker, and I'm drinking on the job. I'm at the liquor store waiting for it to open in the morning, and so I could go before I have to go to work. I got to get my fix. And it got to the point, I was waking up with shakes, and I didn't understand what that was. I just knew that when I drank, they went away. And yeah, the drinking on the job was insane. And, my coworkers would kind of, "You been drinking?" I'm like, "No, it's hand sanitizer." I worked in a medical office, so, I got away with that. But people were suspicious, my behavior, my quote unquote, my napping on my lunch break was passing out so I can get through the rest of the day,
Mm.
you know. And this was just normal. Like, I didn't see a problem with it. This was just my life and I accepted it. And so I got good at hiding it, on the outside. I seemed, pretty put together. I had the house and the husband and the car and stuff. And I'm completely dying inside. And I'm not talking about it because I feel like I deserve it. I feel like um, this is it. Like, this is the best I can do, and I just need to accept it. And the drinking just made it okay. It made it tolerable. And but by August 2013, and what's hard too is I had the way that I like remember it or recall it, but in talking with friends and family, some of the things didn't happen exactly the way I thought, which is crazy. So here's what I recall is I did know that I had a lot of physical pain that I was in from that car accident, and I still, had I had the Norco that I was taking for that, and I wasn't taking it responsibly, that's for sure. I was definitely drinking with it, but all the buildup, the emotional pain and the physical pain, and I just wanted everything to stop. And so I took a whole bottle of the pain medication, and then I woke up the next day and I didn't think anything of it, which is crazy. But I want to say like a week goes by, and I'm on the phone with him, and we're arguing. That's just kind of our interaction all the time now. And I said the words, I was like, "That's it, I'm killing myself. It's your fault." He said, "You're crazy effing drunk like your mom," and he hung up the phone. So what did I do? I continued to drink, and I ended up taking a bottle of sleeping pills that night, and then the next day, super groggy, but I woke up. And again, without a thought, like no fear behind it. Like, that was really reckless. That was kind of scary. It was just kind of like whatever, you know. And I just went about my drinking and my day to day, and and I have no idea what my son is seeing or where he is really truly at this point. Luckily, I found out through family. I think he spent a lot of time at his dad's during this part of my life, and which made me feel a little better. But he was there for some pretty ugly stuff, and he got to the point where he's taking care of me. And how I recall is, I think maybe another week or so goes by and I reach out to my dad, but really I probably just answered the phone because I've completely isolated myself at this point. And I don't know the last time I like talked or saw my best friend. I don't recall the last time I talked to my dad, but I said I'm drinking too much and I don't know what to do. And like, I didn't identify as an alcoholic because I'm not my mother. And my dad was a really good co-attendant at the time, and he did all the footwork for me. And he said, okay, here's what you do. Like, I could follow direction. And Kaiser CDRP, it's our chemical dependency recovery program. I think that's what it is. They do walk-in assessments. And so I was supposed to go in, I think it was like a Thursday, maybe mid-morning, and I go intoxicated because at this point, like, I have to drink to function. It's the only way I can function is if I have alcohol in me. And they take me in the back and they start asking the questions, and they can smell me. They could tell I had been drinking, and they asked me when my last drink was, and whatever BS lie I told them, 'cause it was probably right before I walked in that door, in their door. And they said, we can't properly assess you till you're sober for 72 hours. So they gave me an appointment for the following Monday. And I left. And I left, and I didn't think, okay, like, I can do this. I didn't even try. I don't think I even tried. I just was like, whatever. Again, like, that was my whatever. And I continued to drink through that weekend. And that following Monday, when I was supposed to go in, I had my moment of clarity wasn't like, wow, I really need help. Like, this is really a problem for me. My moment of clarity was just like, I'm done. I rationalize it. Like, my son's better off with his father. Like, I have two failed marriages, and my self-esteem, like, there's none. Like, I have no value. I have no worth. All the lies that I've been told, I believe them all. Like, I'm never going to be pretty enough or skinny enough. I'm dumb. I'm never going to be on the same level intellectually as the husband, and I just believed it all. And I was just really tired. I was really tired. And so it was August 26th of 2013. I shot myself. And the crazy thing is that, like, I picked up a drink again, third suicide attempt, survived it. And I still picked up the drink again, that following year. My dad filed for my divorce when I was still in the hospital, so that was taken care of. And my best friend, she moved me in with her and her family to help take care of me, after I got out of the hospital. And I got out, and it was a lot of medical appointments, a lot of stuff to deal with. And now the hospital, the first year, surgery after surgery after surgery. And it was maybe 14 months, about 14 months out of after I shot myself in. And I had a glass of wine with my best friend, because she didn't think I was an alcoholic either. It was my circumstance. I was in an abusive marriage, and I'm depressed. And that was the problem. That had nothing to do with the drinking. And so that glass of wine, I was off and running, but not in front of her. Years later, when I got to sit down with her, because there was a few years she didn't talk to me, and I'd done some damage. She asked me, like, when I crossed that line, like, what happened? And I said, well, when you'd go to bed and you'd stop, I couldn't. I'd be back at the liquor store. And when she was at work, I was at the liquor store, first thing in the morning, starting my day. And again, it became my norm, hiding it, sneaking. And it was, I think I'd been gone the night before. And that's another thing, I like to shut my phone off, and not answer calls, and then just resurface. And I want to say, this is how I remember it. It was probably like, I don't know, 10 a.m. And I got home, and she wasn't at work. And she was scared. She called me out, and she's like, what's going on? She's like, you're drunk. And I was like, no, I'm not. And it was pretty obvious that I was. And she's like, I don't know what to do with you. And so she called my dad. And so my dad's like, so you've been drinking, huh? I was like, yep. You think you need rehab? And I was like, okay. So I went to rehab, and it was 2 months of hell. It was horrible. And then I got out of rehab, and they suggest you do some things, certain things, go to meetings, get phone numbers so you have someone to call. And I didn't do the stuff. I went to meetings. I found a hymn, and that hymn was good with me behind closed doors, but not in public.
Mm.
And so all of that shame and that like my self-esteem was still just gone, completely gone. And and now I'm even more like, the depression is, I don't want to say teetering, but now I have this, I say I disfigured myself, right? I had this being vain before I shot myself. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm still a little vain, but but having that this face was really hard for me to accept. And what happened is I ended up drinking again. I couldn't accept my circumstance. I couldn't accept the challenges that I've created. So I have some pretty gnarly challenges that I deal with daily. And I had a friend tell me, like, I would have never known. It's like, well, I mean, it is what it is, right? Like, I kind of got to a place of acceptance with it, that wears on me from time to time. I have my little breakdowns, but I go, eventually what happens, I drink again, and my dad takes me to another rehab, and he takes me to go say goodbye to my son. And I'm telling my son, I'll talk to you soon. And he won't look at me. He won't make eye contact. He's just standing there. And I hugged him. I said, I love you. He's like, yeah. And he handed me this letter and he walked away. And I read that letter, and like, he couldn't understand how I could choose alcohol over him. Like, he just wanted me to get my stuff together so he could come and live with me again. And I wasn't capable of doing it. I didn't have an answer for him. And I went to that rehab, and I got out. And so the first one was 2 months. This one was 4 months. And I go to a sober living. I end up, relocating. And if you're sober living, this, accountability structure, this is what I'm going to need. This is going to be great. But it was co-ed. So there was this guy. And the sober living really wasn't in a great part of town. And basically what ended up happening is I got into a relationship with a guy who had, just got out of prison, and was just a really sick individual. But all I saw was, unicorns and rainbows. And I was like, oh my God, this delusion, like, we're going to be this like recovery couple. And like, he wants the same things, and he's sober. And it was a crazy delusion. And, he was the first man to really give me that attention. Like, after I had shot myself, looking the way I look, he gave me this attention, and it made me feel so good. And like, he told me he loved me, and like, I believed all of it. And so it kind of hooked me. Right. And so I ended up, not drinking for, I want to say I might have stayed sober maybe 6 or 7 months, but it got pretty ugly pretty fast, because he ended up using again, and he got kicked out and had to go to rehab, and I visited him in rehab, and I'm still sober at this point, but he got out of rehab, and he started using it. And I was like, I don't understand. Like, I want to try it. Like, I don't understand what the fascination is. Why can't you stop? And he's like, no. I go, I could just go get it myself. And so, it was just the first time. That's all it took. And I'm off and running, the insanity and the fact that it became my norm. Like, this is my life. And just how delusional I was and accepting of the lifestyle, I think it was a matter of 5 months of using that it just was completely, I'd gotten kicked out because I peed dirty, and then they let me back in. And then it happened the second time, and they let me pay $100 readmittance fee and move back in. And all the while, don't see it as a problem, and realizing too, like, what it's really cost me, because, not only and I don't talk about this a whole lot, but in that process, I still have some reconstruction plan, like some surgeries coming up. My insurance, they authorize prosthetic implants, which is huge. That's huge. And that was the goal, like, to get, some teeth and a little more, cosmetic stuff going on. And, all, the 2 years, all the surgeries, that was the goal. All this stuff is leading up to this, moment. And, I get fitted, and then I have my natural facial surgeon, he puts the posts in and does the surgery to do some revisions on the bottom of my lip. And I had started using methamphetamines. I was high, and I still went in for the surgery because I'm in this delusion, this fantasy, and it's okay. I'm not drinking, but I'm using, the insanity. And so what happened was I went for that surgery. Well, what happened is the stitches popped, and I went in for my 2-week post-op, and he was so furious. He yelled at me, and he's like, I smoked cigarettes at that point. And he's like, I've been telling you to quit for months. And he's thinking I'm smoking cigarettes. No one knew about the drug use, And so on top of it, I'm come down he's like, and he's in my face. He's like, what's going on with your eyes? Look at your pupils. And I'm like, I knew, I freaked. I knew you were going to be upset with me. And I took my anxiety medication, whatever, lie. And he's just like, I'm done with you. So he discharged me as a patient. And I called my dad when I left that appointment. I'm in the parking lot and I'm sobbing. And my dad's like, well, what do you expect? And that's it. I'm like, and again, no one knows, and I don't come clean about the drug use. So I go home. And I don't know how long after that happened that it did come out, because it was a matter of I think it was a matter of him continuing to come to the house. He got kicked off the property because of our interactions were so toxic, especially when he was high and I'm high. And again, no one knows that I'm using. They never thought that I was influenced by him. They never thought that it was, that someone like me would be using. And what happened is I pissed dirty again, and they made me call my dad. It was I remember it was probably like 1 a.m, and I had gotten home, and the women that I lived with, at this point we were in a separate house next door to the co-ed is now men, and now we have our women's house, and I ended up calling my dad the next day, and I came clean. And so, doing what my dad did, he came in, and packed me up and took me to rehab again. The lecture, they relocated me further away because the fear of him. He got really violent. It was really abusive relationship, and there's a lot of fear of him finding me and everything that goes along with my insanity. And so I ended up going to this rehab, and I think I was there 4.5 months. And it was after I moved from there, I moved to a faith-based home. I figured, because I need Jesus in my life. Jesus is going to save me, right? And all the while, I'm still not doing the stuff, I go to rehab, I get out, and I do nothing. I go to rehab, I get out, I do nothing. I get out, I'm going to find religion. That's what I need. And, these women, beautiful, they live to serve the Lord, and God put it on their heart to open his house, and then they moved me in. They didn't know what they were getting into, and I wasn't done yet, but I didn't know, because I'm still in victim mode. It's still everyone else. It's still my circumstances. It's, the pity pot, the poor me. And I moved to that home, and there's guidelines and requirements, and I couldn't get on board with them. I didn't want to be in their book, and I didn't want to be in my other book that I'm supposed to be in. And so what happened was I drank again, and then they forgave me, and I was 30-day punishment, 30-day probation, and I literally was not allowed to be left alone. And so my best friend, or actually she became one of my good friends, is my roommate. She and she's had her struggles too. She's got a lot of health problems, but God puts people in your life for a reason, and her she is such a significant part of my recovery, because August 26th was always like a doom and gloom day, all full of self-pity. Look what I did to myself. Look what I did. I've ruined my life. And when that day came around, and she said, "You know what, Heather? That's not the day your life ended. That's the day your life began." And I said, "Huh?" And it took me a little bit of time to really grasp that concept and understand what it meant. Because I still wasn't done. So what happened was I was on my way to a meeting, and I stopped at the liquor store for cigarettes, and just instinctively they had the little shooters, the little bottles on the countertop, and I grabbed a handful, just have it, handful, and I throw them in my purse, and then I go and I drink, and then I go home, and I got called out. I'm not a sneaky drunk. And they said, "Sleep it off, we'll talk in the morning." And I threw my hands up. I said, I'm done. Again, that rational thinking of mine, that clarity that I have when I'm intoxicated. And so I ended up having a forced suicide attempt. And thank God for the 2 women that were in the house with me at that time. They found me. They found me in time, and I woke up a day later, intubated and strapped to a hospital bed. When I looked, when I was looking around and realized where I was like, "Are you?" My first thought was like, "Are you effing kidding me? Come on!" And then my friend showed up, and that roommate that I had, she called her, she told her what happened, and and she showed up, and she said, what happened? She had just talked to me, the day or two before. And I said, I had an emotional mental breakdown, don't you know? Because I'm a victim. And she said, honey, you think you just might be an alcoholic? And I was like, oh my God, what? It's that like those proverbial pop, and it was that like, oh my God, like I am a crazy drunk like my mom, and it's okay. And, that was my first like total, like, I am powerless. I'm completely powerless and my way does not work. And so, I got out of the hospital. I went to a third psych hospital and then a fourth rehab. But out of that rehab, I moved to a sober living that was, it was structured. It was like genuine. The guy had recovery himself, and he cared about about the tenants. And it was down the street from an Alano club where I can access meetings 3 or 4 times a day. Because also at this point, the third rehab I was in, I made an agreement with my dad, and I said, hey, I'm not going to drive till I'm sober for a year. Had him sell my truck, hold the money, verbal contract, and so I moved there, and it just like everything was aligned. It couldn't have gotten better. Like I walked down that street every day, 3 times a day for months. Like, I was really fortunate, or I didn't have to worry about work. And like my full-time job was to stay sober, get sober, stay sober. And, living in that situation, that setting with other women, it really gave me the opportunity to build this foundation for my recovery and learn how to deal with different, living in a house with 6 other women who are in recovery. Some are sicker than others, sober or not. And it wasn't horrible though, but it can be, I could say it wasn't horrible. It could be challenging at times, but so I got busy with my sponsor, and I finally took the suggestions and started to do the stuff they asked. And I had to look at my part in my relationship. So that second husband, I cyber stalked him, don't recommend it, on Facebook. And he got remarried and like had another baby. I'm just like, and I freaked out. I remember my poor dad. I called my dad freaking out, and he's like a few hours away. He's like, go to the ER, go to the ER. He doesn't like, I'm like the ugly crying, screaming, like snot bubbles. I'm like, freaking out on him. He's like, go to the ER, go to the ER. And then like, I catch my breath finally. I'm like, it's okay. I'm okay, And I end up hanging up with him, and I sat and I really was like, oh my God, like the moment, huge point in my recovery too, turning point is, oh my God, what if the marriage was crap because I'm an alcoholic? What if all the challenges in that marriage were because of me? And that's the first time in my life I ever accepted responsibility for my part, because I was an angel. I was the most selfless, giving person in the world, and I did no wrong. But I did, I wasn't a good wife, and I like to talk about his indiscretions, but I had mine as well, but we don't talk about that because it's justified in my mind. I was still sick. And but the crazy beautiful things that have happened along the way, so I just celebrated 5 years in July.
Fantastic.
And yeah, right. It's nothing short of a miracle. And, in recovery, we talk about a higher power, that God word is thrown around. And, I've always had a belief of God. It wasn't the same God that I heard them talk about when I was in that faith-based home, because that God was a very punishing, unforgiving God. I really believe that I I wasn't saved. I was left here to suffer. Like, I'm being punished because of my actions. And what I learned is that it's actually God's grace that saved me and gave me the opportunity to heal, to start to live a life that I didn't plan on living. Like, by all counts, like, I shouldn't be sitting here. And I'm so sorry about the video. I'm like looking at my little picture here.
It's fine. It's totally fine.
But the insanity, um, and it still comes now and then. We're human, right?
Yeah.
I still, you're right. My depression is it's managed, but it's depression, and there's no rhyme or reason sometimes. I not this past October, and maybe the October before last, I kind of suffered for about 3 weeks to a month, because I have a really good life. And so I didn't want to look at it as my depression.
Mm.
And it got to the point where, like, I'm emailing my therapist, like, I'm suicidal and I don't have a plan or intent, but like the ideation's there. And she called me immediately. And it wasn't a matter like I needed to go there. Like, I'm safe, I'm okay. But I like the chatter in the head is really loud, and I can't quiet it, and I can't stop it. And so I went to my employer, and I was completely transparent. I said, look, here's the deal. Here's what's going on with me. I need 2 weeks off of work. And I was newer at that job. And they said, okay. They said, okay, you take care of you. And, I ended up doing an IOP online, and they made some adjustments, to my medication. And then I was kind of back on that even keel. It was, I still, my peaks and valleys aren't peaks and valleys. They're just little bumps along the way. My anxiety is manageable. Everything's manageable in my life today.
Hmm.
Because I don't feel the need to check out. I am well aware that I am not perfect, and I don't hold myself to any crazy standard that I used to, which is, but you're this old, and I'm gonna be next week. I guess it's this week. I'm gonna be 46, and like, but I don't have the stuff like what I thought my life would look like at 46 is nothing like I have now. But the life I have now is just, it's like I said, it's sometimes crazy, but it's beautiful. And the experiences along the way. This one incident that happened, it was an incident. Because of the wound and in the manner that happened, it's considered a dirty wound because there's shrapnel in the soft tissue still.
Right.
So I'm prone to get abscesses and skin infections, just random. And this one time I had an abscess, and I had to go in. The doctor wanted like an ultrasound in my jaw, and the ultrasound tech, just talking. She's like, "Oh, like, what happened?" And just curious. And I get up on the table, and I go to lay back, and I have my hands, sitting on my stomach, and I was like, "Oh, I shot myself." And she's just like, I say it so casually. And she put her hand on top of mine, and she looked at me, and she said, "You know what?" That must have been a really rough time in your life. And the tears streamed down, and I said, "You know what it was?" Because a lot of people's response when I like tell them, it's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And it's like, don't be like, I'm not, like, I'm okay. And I remember the first time I said, like, I'm okay, like I cried because I'm okay, self-pity is something that I battle. Well, I don't say self-esteem, self-pity, not so much, but self-esteem. I'm a single 46-year-old woman, and I have body image issues, and I have all these things going on in my head. But when I sit down and I think about it and I quiet them, it's like people accept me for me. And I forget how simple like life can be when I quit. Like I hold myself, like I said, like to the standard, these things I should. But in reality, like I'm in the right place. I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. Like our interaction when you reached out to me, it like this is all, it serves a purpose in my life. It serves a purpose. One of the things that I had the opportunity to do is go to firehouses, like fire stations, and talk to classes. Sometimes one time we went to like it was a classroom of all like new hires for EMT and firefighters, and what I get to do is I get to share my mess. We don't share the recovery part, we share my mess to give them a little insight into what it looks like with our disease, with my disease, and that give them the little maybe empathy. So, and to know, like to not bring it home. And the gal that I do it with, it's great. Like she has the actual like statistics and the calls that they run and the people they encounter, and and the fact that I could share that. And I just did one last week, a class, and I told them, I said, this can't be for nothing. Shooting myself, even that abusive relationship, like it wasn't for nothing. I hear it a lot. People that had the gun like in their hand, and whether they couldn't pull the trigger or something happened when they did, and it's sad, but at the same time it just reminds me, like no matter what happens in my life, like gun in hand, I don't have to pull the trigger. And I didn't know that. I didn't know I had a choice. And I do today. I have this God in my life who shows me a lot of grace. and this overwhelming feeling of just like, not satisfaction, that's not the right word, but like comfort, this overwhelming feeling of comfort that I'd never had. I was never okay with who I was since I was a kid. And drinking and drugging was just to escape my realities. And I'm just like, I'm okay today. Even my speech used to be really bad. And I was really self-conscious about it. I had a speech therapist come in to work with me about a month out of the hospital. And she said, there's nothing I could do for you. And she left. And I called my dad and I was freaking out. And, I had a phone call with an apology within 30 minutes. But, my speech used to be really slurred and I'd have to repeat myself a lot. And I had to stutter for a while. But so all this stuff, I have to say, like, I very nonchalant, oh yeah, and then I shot myself and da da da. I'm so casual about it, but I have to remember the impact that has. Like, it's a pretty serious thing. And allowing myself to acknowledge like the things that I have overcome. So for me, it's just like, what else am I going to do? Like, I have no choice. I do have a choice. I could give up, or I could continue to drink myself to death. But, like I said, this life that I have today, I almost missed it. And I don't look for, it's never going to be perfect. And I don't want it to be, because then I'll have nothing to work on. Well, I got to keep it interesting, you know. I got to keep it a little crazy sometimes because, you know, that chaos was so normal for me. Sometimes I have a tendency to manifest it unintentionally, but you just shake your head. I know you know what I'm talking about, but you know, but I don't have to act on it. You know, I tell you, if people knew what really went on in my head, they would probably be pretty terrified, or if not entertained. You know, but yeah, so 5 years sober, I'm employable. I work at a crisis residential facility for mental health, and I get to share my experience with my mental health and my recovery with clients that might be dually diagnosed like I am. And if you would have told me 10 years ago this would be my life, I wouldn't have believed it. You know, I wouldn't have believed it. And the connections and the people that I've met along the way, you know, they're dear to me. I have some beautiful people in my life who hold me up when I am weak, and remind, like, it's okay to not be okay. I don't have to be the strong person, you know. And for a while, it's so weird. Like, I'm so used to getting cut off. They're like, it's time. But I was talking to my sponsor, and you know, so I post those. I think it was one of my videos you might have seen on Facebook, one of my readings, or it might have been a response to a rude comment that was made, and it had happened again. And this woman, she was really mean, and it was unnecessary. And I called my sponsor, I'm like, and I'm angry, and I'm telling her about it, and she's just like, well, what if you just stop? What if you just, you know, stop doing the videos? And I'm like, and let the bully win? Why do I have to take the high road? Why do I have to take the high road? You know, and she said, you don't have to, but you get to. I hate when she tells me that, but it's true. You know, I do get to. And I told her, I said, but I'm always going to be that girl that shot herself. You know, that girl that shot herself. I'm that girl. And she said, Heather, you know, that is something that happened to you. It's not you. And again, like a shift in my perspective. And you're right. It's not who I am. It's something that happened to me. And, you know, but I had to be told that because I made it me, you know. And like I said, I don't know, I think I'm kind of rambling a little bit now, but like, I'm super grateful. And like I said, you know, this wasn't for nothing. Like, I get to walk with purpose today, a purpose I never could have imagined that I'd have, you know. And the fact that so many people can relate, it makes me feel really good that by me sharing my crazy, it helps people, you know, because a lot of people in recovery, they get it. Yeah. I think that's all of it.
I don't even know how to start unpacking that, to be honest. Our stories are different, but I can identify with the chaos, the unmanageability,
Right.
the hurt. You know, it led me down a similar road to several, like you, several attempts at suicide, and my last proper one was, you know, with a gun, and I was going to shoot myself, and the gun jammed twice, and then somebody knocked on the door the third time. And yeah, it led me to it just led me into madness. So I can identify with that. It, you know, my road went down to many different rock bottoms, but yeah, I can identify with the feelings and the hurt and the pain, and even at the start, not being able to find something to even call it how you're feeling. I wouldn't admit that I was an addict or an alcoholic at the start, because I was young. I was 14 when I went to my first meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of put that to the back of my head, and yeah, I suppose the last time that my head got really sort of messed up, well, another time before that, actually, it was 26th of June, 2014, and I was sat in a crack house with a pipe of crack cocaine, and I said, God, at this point, I don't even know if you exist. But if you do, please take away this thirst, this hunger for drink and drugs, or take my life, because I cannot live like this anymore. And I fell asleep. It's really hard to do on crack cocaine. It was about 10 o'clock at night, and I fell asleep, and I woke up at about 3 minutes, 4 minutes past 12 on the 27th of June 2014, and I haven't used a day since. My thirst wasn't there. And I'm not saying that I haven't had the odd thought or the using dreams, or
Those fleeting thoughts.
Yeah, because it happens. It's always going to happen, and the using dreams that are really so real. And I have a life beyond what I could have ever imagined. Like you said, like you said 10 years ago that you couldn't imagine being where you are. 8 years ago, I couldn't imagine being where I am today. My life has took me in this past 8 years down the roads of, like yourself, talking to people, and, been blessed to be able to do that, and been blessed to be able to go to film sets and share my life story with actors and directors and producers. And,
wow.
I've been able to share my story to a room full of training doctors. And I think I say this pretty much every time we do one of these, but I believe if we've been through a certain way of life and we've lived a certain way of life, it is our responsibility to educate.
Right.
I think it's our responsibility to be teachers. If you can't teach, teach. If you can teach, teach. Because people don't understand. People don't understand about mental health. There's still a stigma around, mental health and addiction and stuff like that. And we need to be stamping those out, which is why I love getting people like you on to just share the total rawness and realism of it all.
Yeah. Well, that's too, like, so my big thing is, recovery, anonymity, and I break mine all the time, and I'm completely fine. And I'm so open because there's a purpose for it. Like, I didn't survive what I survived to not share it. Like, we talk about us being selfish. Well, it'd be selfish of me to not share, especially for that person that, because of this, like I said, like there's that stigma. And I'd have people come up to me after meetings because I shared something about, my depression, and they're like, oh my God, like I'm so uncomfortable. And because, they have the same struggle, but they're not, and unfortunately people who don't experience it or have experience with it have an opinion that they should probably keep to themselves
Mm.
because they don't know.
Mm.
And it makes people uncomfortable, and it that breaks my heart. You know, it's going to drive people away
Mm.
instead of just accepting them where they are. That yeah, right. So we survived what we survived to share that we can recover. Like, it's possible.
It is. It's, you know, I never in my life dreamed that I could have the life that I have got now. I never in my life dreamed that, you know, when I was using, that I could ever be
Mm.
better. You know, I pretty much lost everything,
Yeah.
several times over. You know, but that madness is, I've had people say, well, you know, why can't you just stop? Why can't you just not drink or not take that drug, or, you know, change that thought, change that mindset?
Mm.
And I actually really feel kind of bad for those people,
Mm-hmm.
because one of the first things I learned, you know, like I said, I've been around the recovery anonymous meetings since I was 14, so that's like over 30 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not anonymous anymore. You know, I'm far from it, but I know that my life has been at the point where I couldn't manage it, and still in recovery, it's been at the point where I felt like things were slipping, you know. 2017, June 2017, we lost my biological mum to cancer in April, Easter.
Yeah.
And in the June, we lost my 2-day-old niece, who was murdered
Mm.
by her father, who in turn was murdered by his cellmate less than a year later.
Yeah.
So we were left with questions, and still I didn't drink and I didn't pick up. You know, I've got a network. I don't really go to meetings anymore, but I have
Mm.
people around me, and I work a program. I have
Right.
you know, faith is a big one for me.
Mm-hmm.
My faith, and you know, going to church, and I have father figures in church, and I have big brother figures in church, and you know, I'm kind of steeped in that, and I try to live a best life that I can biblically. But it was at the it took a year before, well, nearly a year before we could have the funeral for baby Luna, and
No.
one of the elders from our church, he took me home because I couldn't do it alone. So a few hundred
Yeah.
miles away from where I now live, and I was, you know, I was sat there in the funeral, and you know, I was managing, and you know, the funeral finished and went outside, and I smoked back then, and the first thing I did was light a cigarette, and his mum came up to me and put her arms around me and said, "Thanks for coming." And I broke.
Mm.
Um, and you were talking about clarity earlier, and that kind of brought that up for me, because I went to sit in the car, and I had a bit of a cry, and I was hit by this clarity that you only get. I don't know if you know what I mean, but like when you get so angry, and you hit something, or hit a bit too hard, or you know, you're angry, you're screaming, you're shouting, you stub your toe, and a calmness
Yeah.
just washes over
Yeah.
you. You go
Yeah.
from rage into just a monk
Yeah.
in a second flat.
Yes. Yes. I get it.
I was hit by that clarity,
Mm.
and I looked at Chris, And I said, I need to forgive him. He said, what?
Yeah.
I said, I need to forgive him, not for him. I need to forgive
Yeah.
his mum as well, and not for her, but for my own mental health.
Right.
And I think that's where my journey really, really began in
Yeah.
this. I thank COVID really, because it gave me the opportunity to talk to my friend who's a hostage negotiator of all things.
Yeah.
He said, why don't you do a podcast and I'll be your first guest? And that's how this was born.
Wow.
You know, and I share my story a lot.
Yeah.
And I like to give people a block to be able to
Hmm.
share their own story. I'm a
Right.
natural storyteller. I love to tell my story. But I
Mhm.
love to listen to other people's stories like you, because it grounds me. It keeps me humble. It keeps me with my eyes on what I've got. I'm so grateful for the family that I've got. The woman that served me a cup of coffee at the local food bank coffee morning when I was a homeless addict, who took pity on me and bought me tobacco and took me for a meal. We got
Yeah.
we got married in 2019. Um,
Wow.
so
Congratulations.
yeah, and it's a big thing. It's a
Yeah.
massive thing, and people don't understand that life in and living
Mhm.
life for people like me and you,
Yeah.
it's not always an easy thing. Some people
No.
skate through it and they find it easy. Some find it relatively hard. I'm now trying to find that balance. It's not always easy.
Yeah.
Medication helps, and I have a few things medically wrong with me, and I survive on paracetamol and prayer. But
Mhm.
I'm so happy to be able to just sit here and listen to your story, and to be able to share it with my followers. That's another big thing for me. I've got people that follow my career, that buy my books, that watch my films, that support me all the way through, that sit here and watch this. And you know I never thought that would ever happen.
Right.
I The last thing I wanted to do was be in front of a camera. I tried that, and it led me back into addiction. So
Yeah.
I wanted to stay well and truly behind the camera.
Mhm.
But once I got sober and started learning how to deal with my trauma,
Mhm.
I had to sit in front of the camera again and set out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I would say it's funny you mentioned that. So, those readings, those videos that I post, it was when COVID, everything shut down, and they started the Zoom meetings online, and you could see yourself,
mm,
well, when it's working anyways. And I was really uncomfortable with how I looked when I talked. It's not like I look at myself in the mirror when I'm having a conversation with somebody. And I was so uncomfortable with how I looked. So one day I just, I held my phone out and I recorded myself doing the reading, and I was like, you know what, I'm gonna post it to my page because I'll have to get over it. If I put it out there, I have no choice but to get over it. And what happened was is people started responding.
mm,
And so I kept doing it. And initially it started, because of me and I was uncomfortable, but it grew into something so much more, so much more. And so I totally get that. I get
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's just, who'd have ever thought that when we were in the life that we were in,
Mhm.
and we were living the way that we were living, that actually there would be a hyper normality, you know.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not always comfortable in my own skin, and I'm not always comfortable at speaking.
Yeah.
You know, like I say, yeah, I've done a few podcasts, but one of the things I get is about my accent, and some people can't understand what I say. You know,
Uh,
the last video that you watched, that I did, you know, there were people complaining that they couldn't understand what I was saying, asking for
mhm.
subtitles, which is why I put them on here. But yeah, yeah, I think we'll
Yeah.
leave it there if that's okay.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for stepping out, and I know you're quite anxious about this, and for stepping out and actually, you know, sharing your story. I know that it's going to affect some of my followers. It certainly affected me. And yeah, I'd love to get you on again at some point.
Yeah.
You know, I do like to get guests back on a few months down the line and find out what's happening.
Right.
Um,
I'll let you know all about my trauma therapy I started.
that would be great. That would be great.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I just, if you have one thing to say to anybody watching this that is struggling with addiction, that is struggling with trauma, what's the one thing that you would say to them right now?
The biggest thing would be that you don't have to suffer in silence. So many people do, and you don't have to suffer in silence. You know, reach out, as uncomfortable as it is. You know, people don't judge when you're reaching out for help. That would be it.
Yeah, yeah. And as always, my inbox to this is open. I will put links in the comments and things like that for people to be able to access any help that they may need. Don't sit there and suffer in silence. You know, there's always somebody there that will listen out for you and look out for you. If you just hang on a couple of seconds, I'll finish this off, and then we'll just have a quick debrief.
Sounds good.
Thank you guys ever so much, as always, for tuning in, for watching, for listening. I apologize about the lack of video. We've had some technical difficulties this evening, so we've done our best to get you what we can. This will, as always, go on to YouTube and Spotify, Google Podcasts, and things like that over the next few days. It will also be on the podcast, on YouTube and on my website. So yeah, thank you guys, and I shall see you next time. Cheers, guys.